I was a devoted husband who valued family above everything. For 5 years, my marriage to Sophia seemed perfect, at least on the surface. We had built a beautiful life together, and we were finally ready to start a family. When she told me she was pregnant, I was over the moon. Until I noticed her behavior changing, subtle at first, then unmistakable. The text messages I found were just the beginning of a betrayal I could never have imagined. Before I continue with my story, I would love to know where you are watching from. If you have ever felt betrayed by someone you trusted completely, please hit the like button and subscribe to show your support. I work as a software engineer at a growing tech company in Seattle. The hours can be long, but the pay is good. And I was building a stable future for the family I hope to have someday. I met Sophia 6 years ago at my college roommate Daniel's wedding. She was a bridesmaid, and I was a groomsman. We locked eyes across the dance floor, and something just clicked between us. She had this infectious laugh and intelligence that drew me in immediately. After dancing all night, I asked for her number, and the rest, as they say, was history. Our romance moved quickly. We dated for 10 months before I proposed during a hiking trip to Mount Rainier. I still remember how beautiful she looked with the sun setting behind her as she said yes. We bought a charming 3-bedroom house in a suburban neighborhood with excellent schools. It was perfect for the future we had planned. We wanted 3 children, maybe 4. We both came from small families and dreamed of a home filled with laughter and chaos. For the first few years, our marriage was everything I had hoped for. We traveled to Hawaii, Mexico, and Europe. We hosted dinner parties for our friends and spent holidays with both of our families. Sophia and I were that couple everyone thought had it all figured out. At least that was what I believed. After 5 years of enjoying our time together and advancing in our careers, we decided it was finally time to start our family. We both felt established enough to provide a good life for our children. I remember the night we made the decision. We sat on our back porch with glasses of wine, watching the sunset and talking about what wonderful parents we would be. We tossed out potential baby names and discussed which bedroom would become the nursery. That night we made love with a new purpose, hoping to create the first addition to our family. The first signs of trouble appeared about 6 months ago. Sophia had recently started a new job as an administrator at Westlake High School. She had previously worked in corporate administration, but wanted something with better hours that would be more compatible with raising children. The school was only 15 minutes from our house, and the schedule would allow her to be home when our future children returned from school. At first, everything seemed normal. Sophia would come home and tell me about her day, the students, and her coworkers. She mentioned Jordan Hamilton, an English teacher, several times. According to Sophia, he had been especially helpful in showing her the ropes and introducing her to the school community. I was grateful she had found a friend to make her transition easier. Then I started noticing changes. Sophia began coming home, later explaining she had after-school meetings or was helping with various school events. Sometimes she would mention Jordan was involved in these activities too. I thought nothing of it at first. I trusted my wife completely and was happy she was integrating well into her new workplace. Our sex life began to change too. We had always been physically affectionate and intimate at least a few times a week. But suddenly Sophia was always too tired or had a headache. When we did make love, it felt different, like she was going through the motions. I attributed it to the stress of her new job and the pressure of trying to conceive. Then came the comment that planted the first real seed of doubt. My colleague Kevin mentioned seeing Sophia at Bellini, an upscale Italian restaurant downtown, with a man who was definitely not me. When I asked Sophia about it that evening, she explained it was just a lunch meeting with Jordan and another administrator to discuss a new school program. Her explanation made sense, but something in her eyes seemed off, a flicker of something I had never seen before. Still, I pushed my concerns aside. This was my wife, my partner, the woman I trusted with my heart and future. To reconnect, I planned a surprise weekend getaway for our anniversary. I booked a cabin on Lake Chelan, arranged for her favorite flowers to be waiting, and packed all her favorite snacks for the drive. I was determined to reignite the spark that seemed to be dimming between us. The weekend was pleasant enough, but there was an undercurrent of tension I could not identify. Sophia checked her phone frequently, which was unusual for her during our special time together. When I asked who she was texting, she quickly said it was her mother asking about our trip. I chose to believe her. 2 weeks after our anniversary weekend, everything changed. Sophia came home with a smile I had not seen in months. She handed me a small box. Inside was a positive pregnancy test. After trying for 6 months, we had finally succeeded. I lifted her off the ground and spun her around, tears of joy streaming down my face. I immediately called my parents and brother Adam to share the news. My mom cried, and my dad talked about teaching his grandchild to fish. Sophia seemed less enthusiastic about telling her family, saying she wanted to wait until the first trimester was over. I respected her caution, though I was bursting with excitement. That weekend, I cleared out the spare bedroom and began researching paint colors for the nursery. I downloaded pregnancy apps on my phone and ordered several books on becoming a father. Sophia watched my preparations with a strange expression, somewhere between amusement and discomfort. When I asked if she was feeling all right, she blamed morning sickness and hormones for her mood swings. Again, I accepted her explanation without question. I planned a special dinner at home to celebrate the pregnancy, complete with sparkling cider instead of wine. I wanted to discuss doctor's appointments and birth plans, but Sophia seemed distracted and changed the subject repeatedly. Looking back, I should have seen the signs. But love makes you blind, and hope can be the cruelest deception of all. As weeks passed, Sophia became increasingly secretive with her phone. She would take calls in another room or text with the phone angled away from me. One morning while she was in the shower, her phone lit up on the nightstand. I normally would never check her messages, but something compelled me to glance over. The text was from Jordan, accompanied by several heart emojis. It read, "Miss you already. Last night was amazing." My heart raced as I heard the shower turn off. When Sophia returned to the bedroom, I confronted her about the message. She laughed it off, explaining Jordan was just overly friendly with everyone, and the message referred to a successful school fundraiser they had organized. Her explanation seemed rehearsed, but I wanted desperately to believe her. After all, we were having a baby together. Surely she would not betray me while carrying our child. I began noticing Sophia deleting messages whenever I entered the room. She changed her phone password, claiming she was concerned about data security at work. When I asked about doctor appointments for the baby, she became evasive, saying she had already gone to some while I was at work. When I offered to rearrange my schedule to accompany her to future appointments, she insisted it was unnecessary for routine checkups. One evening, while paying bills, I found receipts for restaurants I had never visited with Sophia. When questioned, she claimed they were lunch meetings with school staff. The frequency of these lunches seemed excessive, but again I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Sophia grew emotionally distant. The woman who once shared everything with me now revealed little about her days. She no longer asked about my work or seemed interested in my life. Our home, once filled with conversation and laughter, became uncomfortably quiet. I felt like I was living with a stranger, wearing my wife's face. Despite my growing concerns, I remained committed to our marriage and excited about becoming a father. I continued preparing for the baby, researching childcare options, and setting up a college fund. Meanwhile, Sophia showed little enthusiasm about the pregnancy. She did not want to discuss names or nursery themes. When I brought home a tiny pair of baby shoes, she barely glanced at them before making an excuse to leave the room. My emotional turmoil intensified with each passing day. I fluctuated between suspicion and self-doubt. Was I being paranoid? Or was something truly wrong? I started seeing a therapist to help process my feelings, careful not to accuse Sophia of anything concrete. My therapist suggested improved communication might resolve my concerns, but Sophia rebuffed all my attempts to connect more deeply. The truth revealed itself 3 months after Sophia announced her pregnancy. I was searching our shared email account for a receipt I needed for a warranty claim. As I scrolled through recent messages, a subject line caught my eye: payment confirmation for medical services. It was from a clinic I did not recognize addressed to Sophia. Curious, I opened the email and found a receipt for a medical procedure performed 2 weeks earlier. The date coincided with what Sophia had described as a 3-day work conference in Portland. The email did not specify the nature of the procedure, only a billing code. With growing unease, I searched the code online and discovered it corresponded to a first-trimester abortion. My mind refused to process this information. There had to be a mistake. Perhaps the email was sent in error, or the billing code was entered incorrectly. I checked our joint bank account and found a withdrawal matching the amount on the receipt made on the same date. The evidence was becoming impossible to ignore. I sat motionless at my desk for hours trying to make sense of what I had discovered. If Sophia had terminated the pregnancy, why would she do so without discussing it with me? And why continue to pretend she was still pregnant? As painful as these questions were, an even more devastating possibility emerged. What if the baby was not mine? With shaking hands, I did something I never thought I would do. While Sophia was at work the next day, I accessed her laptop. As a software engineer, I knew how to recover deleted browsing history and access email accounts. What I found shattered my world completely. There were hundreds of emails between Sophia and Jordan dating back almost to her first day at the school. The messages started professionally, but quickly became flirtatious and then explicitly romantic. They detailed their affair in uncomfortable specificity, from their first kiss in his classroom after hours to weekend meetups when I was working overtime or visiting my parents. Most devastating were the exchanges after Sophia discovered she was pregnant. In one message she wrote, "I do not know if it is his or yours." Jordan responded, "Either way, you know we cannot keep it. You said yourself you are not ready to leave him yet." They discussed the abortion clinic in Portland, how Jordan would drive her there and stay in a hotel with her afterward. They planned the entire trip while I sat at home excited about becoming a father to a baby that would never be born. There were photos, too. Sophia and Jordan together at restaurants and hotel rooms, even one taken in our car. In each image, they looked happy, carefree, and completely unconcerned about the devastation they were causing. In one particularly painful email, Sophia had written, "Sometimes I feel guilty, but then I remember how alive you make me feel, compared to how stagnant things are with Kent." I printed key emails and photos, then closed the laptop. My hands were steady now, but my soul felt hollow. Everything I believed about my marriage, my wife, and my future had been a carefully constructed lie. The betrayal was total and complete. I spent the next several hours preparing myself emotionally for the confrontation that would change my life forever. I arranged the printed evidence on our dining table, placing the abortion receipt at the center. Then I waited for Sophia to return home. When she walked through the door that evening, her smile faded instantly upon seeing my expression and the papers arranged on the table. Her eyes darted from the evidence to my face, and for a moment neither of us spoke. "What is all this?" she finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "The truth," I replied, my voice surprisingly calm despite the storm raging inside me. "I know everything, Sophia. About Jordan, about the affair, about the baby." My voice broke on the last word. "Our baby, that you killed, without even telling me." She initially attempted to deny it, claiming I had misunderstood the emails or that they were taken out of context. But as I pointed to specific messages and dates, her denials weakened. Finally, she collapsed into a chair across from me. "It just happened," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Jordan and I connected in a way I had not felt in years. I did not mean for any of this to happen. Did not mean for it to happen," I repeated incredulously. "You have been seeing him for months. You let me believe we were starting a family while you were sleeping with another man. You let me prepare a nursery for a baby you had already decided to abort." Her excuses poured out between sobs. The affair began as innocent friendship. She felt trapped in our marriage. She was not sure if she ever wanted children. Jordan understood her in ways I never could. Each word was another knife in my heart. Whose baby was it, I asked, needing to know the full extent of her betrayal. I do not know, she admitted, unable to meet my eyes. That is why I terminated the pregnancy. I could not bear to have a child and never know for sure who the father was. So you made that decision alone, I said. You did not think I deserved to know. That maybe if the baby was mine, I would want a chance to be its father. Even if our marriage ended, I was scared, she whispered. I did not know what to do. You knew exactly what you were doing. I countered, pushing the hotel receipts toward her. You planned everything down to the last detail. You watched me set up a nursery and talk to my parents about becoming grandparents. You let me believe a lie for months. Sophia broke down completely, then falling to her knees and begging for forgiveness. She promised to end things with Jordan, to go to counseling, to do whatever it took to save our marriage. But looking at her, I no longer saw the woman I had loved for 6 years. I saw a stranger who had taken everything from me, including the chance to be a father. I want you out of the house tonight, I said, standing up. Stay with a friend or get a hotel. I do not care. I just cannot look at you right now. She grabbed my arm as I turned to leave. Please, Kent. 5 years of marriage has to be worth fighting for. People make mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we can get through this. I gently removed her hand from my arm. End of. The mistake was believing you were the person I thought you were. The mistake was trusting you with my heart and my future. I will be staying with Adam tonight. When I come back tomorrow, I expect you to be gone. I walked out the door with nothing but my wallet and keys, leaving behind the life I had built and the future I had planned. I drove to my brother's apartment in a daze, the full impact of what had happened still not fully registering in my mind. When I told Adam everything, his fury matched the pain I felt. He insisted I stay with him as long as I needed. That night, as I lay on his couch staring at the ceiling, the reality of my situation finally hit me. My marriage was over. The baby I had already loved would never be born. The future I had envisioned had evaporated in an instant. The next week passed in a blur of pain and disbelief. I called in sick to work, unable to focus on anything beyond my basic needs. I barely ate or slept. Sophia called and texted constantly, her messages alternating between desperate pleas for forgiveness and accusations that I was being unreasonable by not giving her a second chance. She showed up at Adam's apartment 3 days after our confrontation, eyes red from crying, clutching a photo album from our wedding. Adam intercepted her in the lobby, telling her I needed space and time. According to him, she screamed that I was throwing away our marriage without even trying to save it loud enough for everyone in the building to hear. News of our situation spread quickly through our friend circle. Some suggested I consider reconciliation, arguing that marriages can survive affairs with enough work and counseling. Others, particularly those who had experienced betrayal themselves, supported my decision to walk away. My parents, who had adored Sophia, were devastated but stood by me unequivocally. As the initial shock began to wear off, I was left with a profound identity crisis. For years, I had defined myself largely as Sophia's husband and a future father. Now both of those identities were gone. Who was I without them? What would my future look like now? The darkest moment came when I found myself sitting in my car outside our house, late one night, a week after discovering the truth. I watched the lights in what had been our bedroom, knowing Sophia was inside despite my request for her to leave. In that moment, I considered forgiving her, taking her back, pretending the affair and the abortion had never happened, just to escape the crushing pain of starting over alone. But then I remembered the calculated nature of her betrayal, the months of lies and the decision she made without me about our child. I realized that what we had was already gone, destroyed. Not by my discovery, but by her actions. There was nothing left to save. After 2 weeks of emotional turmoil, I made an appointment with a divorce attorney. Sandra Patterson was recommended by a colleague who had gone through a similar situation. In her office, surrounded by law books and family photos, I shared my story for what felt like the 100th time. Sandra listened without judgment, taking notes and occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she explained my options clearly and compassionately. Washington is a no-fault divorce state, she explained. The affair and abortion cannot be used as grounds for divorce, legally speaking. However, they may influence property division and the overall process. She outlined the steps ahead: filing the petition, serving Sophia with papers, the mandatory 90-day waiting period, negotiations regarding our assets, and finally, the dissolution of our marriage. Hearing it broken down into procedural steps made it seem both more real and somehow more manageable. Before I left, Sandra asked if I was certain about my decision. "Divorce is always difficult," she said. "Are you sure reconciliation is not an option you want to explore?" I appreciated her thoroughness, but felt no hesitation. "Some betrayals cannot be forgiven," I replied. "This is one of them." The next day, Sophia appeared at my workplace, having learned about my legal consultation from a mutual friend. She caused a scene in the lobby, crying and begging me to reconsider. Security had to escort her out as my colleagues watched uncomfortably. My boss, understanding the situation, suggested I take more time off to sort through my personal issues. I accepted, grateful for the space to deal with the legal and emotional aspects of ending my marriage. When I returned to our house to collect more of my belongings, I found Sophia had created a small shrine in what would have been the nursery. A teddy bear, baby booties, and a framed ultrasound image from early in her pregnancy sat on the windowsill with a handwritten note of apology. The manipulation was so transparent, it only strengthened my resolve. I methodically packed my clothes, personal items, and important documents. As I worked, Sophia followed me from room to room, alternating between tearful pleas and angry accusations. She claimed I was being cruel by not giving her a chance to make amends. She argued that my refusal to try counseling proved I had never truly loved her. When emotional manipulation failed, she threatened to tell everyone I was the one who had driven her to the affair by being emotionally unavailable. I remained calm, focusing on the task at hand. "I will be in touch through my attorney," I said as I carried the last box to my car. "Please do not contact me directly anymore." Her final words as I drove away were that I would regret this decision for the rest of my life. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I would not. After careful consideration, I made another difficult decision. I contacted the principal of Westlake High School, anonymously reporting the inappropriate relationship between Jordan and Sophia. I did not seek revenge, but I believed there should be professional consequences for such a serious breach of ethics. The principal took the information seriously, especially after I provided redacted copies of emails exchanged on school accounts during work hours. Jordan was placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. When Sophia learned about this, she was furious, accusing me of trying to destroy their lives out of spite. "This is not about punishment," I explained during our only phone conversation after the report. "It is about accountability. Jordan abused his position and the school's trust. What if he does this with someone else in the future?" The investigation confirmed the inappropriate relationship, and Jordan's contract was not renewed for the following academic year. Sophia lost several friends at work who felt betrayed by her behavior and its impact on the school community. News of our divorce spread through our social circle, bringing unwanted advice and judgment from all directions. Some friends took sides, others tried to maintain relationships with both of us, and some disappeared altogether, uncomfortable with the messy reality of our situation. The most difficult conversations were with those who insisted I should forgive Sophia because everyone makes mistakes, or marriage is about working through difficult times. I learned to politely but firmly explain that while I appreciated their concern, my decision was final. Through it all, I focused on rebuilding my life, one day at a time. I found an apartment across town and furnished it with new items, creating a space that had no memories attached to it. I established new routines, joining a gym, taking cooking classes, and reconnecting with friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. Therapy became a lifeline as I processed the grief, anger, and betrayal. My therapist helped me understand that while the pain would never completely disappear, it would eventually become manageable. She encouraged me to acknowledge my feelings without letting them control my actions. There were difficult days when loneliness hit hard. Nights when I dreamed about the child I would never know. Moments when I questioned whether I was making the right choice by walking away from the life I had built. But each time I considered wavering, I remembered the deliberate nature of Sophia's betrayal and knew I deserved better than a relationship built on such a broken foundation. As weeks turned into months, I began to recognize glimpses of my old self returning, along with something new, a strength and clarity I had not possessed before. I was learning to trust my instincts again, and to value my own happiness as much as I had once valued our marriage. 6 months after discovering Sophia's betrayal, I sat in Sandra's office again, this time to sign the final divorce papers. Sophia had finally stopped fighting the inevitable after her latest reconciliation attempt through a mutual friend had failed. We had agreed to sell the house and split the proceeds, along with our other assets evenly. There was no alimony since we both had good incomes, and thankfully no child custody issues to navigate. Sophia arrived with her own attorney, looking smaller somehow, the confident woman I had married, replaced by someone subdued and uncertain. When our business was concluded, she asked to speak with me alone. Against my better judgment, I agreed. "I know you will never forgive me," she said, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "But I need you to know how sorry I am. Not just for the affair, but for taking away your chance to be a father. You would have been an amazing dad, Kent." Her words reopened wounds that had barely begun to heal. "I appreciate that," I replied, finding no comfort in her apology but no longer feeling the burning rage that had once consumed me. "I hope you find whatever it is you are looking for, Sophia. I really do." As I walked out of the attorney's office, the gold band I had worn for 5 years now, in an envelope in my pocket, I was struck by an unexpected wave of emotion. Not regret for ending the marriage, but mourning for what it could have been if built on honesty and true partnership. I sat in my car and allowed myself to feel the full weight of the loss, not just of my wife and potential child, but of the future I had once believed in so completely. The administrative tasks of separation continued for weeks. Changing names on accounts, dividing belongings that had not been addressed in the legal proceedings, informing distant relatives and acquaintances who had not yet heard about our divorce. Each task was a small step toward my new reality. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, an opportunity arose at work that would have once seemed impossible to consider. My company needed someone to help establish a new office in Austin, Texas. The position came with a promotion and would require relocating across the country. Before my marriage ended, I would have immediately declined, unwilling to uproot our lives. Now, it felt like the fresh start I needed. I accepted the position and began preparing for the move. Sorting through my remaining possessions, I found items that still triggered painful memories, including a small box containing the baby shoes I had purchased so hopefully. After careful thought, I donated them to a local charity, supporting young mothers, transforming a symbol of loss into something positive. Moving to Austin marked the true beginning of my new life. I threw myself into work establishing the new office and building relationships with local clients. I explored the city's vibrant music scene, hiked in the surrounding hill country, and gradually built a new social circle. When I finally felt ready to consider dating again, I approached it with caution. I was honest with potential partners about my past, explaining my divorce, and the trust issues I was still working through. Some were scared away by my baggage, but others appreciated my honesty. I learned that vulnerability, while frightening, could also be a strength. My first serious relationship after Sophia was with Lauren, a software developer I met at a tech conference. Our connection developed slowly, built on friendship and mutual respect. She had also experienced betrayal in her past and understood the importance of transparency and trust. Though we eventually realized we wanted different things and parted amicably, the relationship helped me believe in connections again. In my quieter moments, I sometimes thought about the child who might have been, whether a boy or girl, what they might have looked like, what kind of father I would have been. I found a way to honor this loss by volunteering with a mentoring program for at-risk youth, channeling my paternal instincts into helping children who needed positive male role models. 2 years after leaving Seattle, I returned for a conference staying with Adam and his new wife. The city felt different now, familiar yet distant, like a place visited in a dream. I drove past our old house, now owned by a young family with children, and felt a surprising sense of peace. That chapter of my life was truly closed. The healing process taught me lessons I never expected to learn. I discovered that trusting my intuition was not paranoia, but self-preservation. That forgiveness does not always mean reconciliation. Sometimes it simply means letting go of anger to reclaim your peace. That having firm boundaries is not selfishness, but self-respect. I learned that some relationships are not meant to be saved, that walking away can require more courage than staying. That starting over, while terrifying, can open doors to possibilities you never imagined. Most importantly, I discovered my own resilience, the ability to face devastating loss and emerge not unchanged but unbroken. The betrayal that once defined me became just one chapter in a much longer story. Today, as I reflect on the journey from complete devastation to healing, I recognize how far I have come. The pain has not disappeared entirely, but it no longer dictates my choices or defines my identity. I have built a life I am proud of, with meaningful work, authentic relationships, and a deeper understanding of myself. To anyone facing similar betrayal, I would say this: trust yourself enough to walk away from what hurts you, even when others think you should stay. Healing is not linear, and there is no timeline for grief. Be patient with yourself on the difficult days, and celebrate even small victories. Know that your worth is not determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. The future remains unwritten, and for the first time in a long while, that feels like a promise rather than a threat. Have you ever had to make the difficult decision to walk away from something that was hurting you even when others thought you should stay? Leave a comment below and share your experience. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is start over.